Welcome back, Nerdiverse, for another episode of MOTN Reviews, where we took a look at a film from the Nerdiverse, a TV series from the Nerdiverse, and give you guys our thoughts on it. I'm, of course, Master of the Nerdiverse, Mike G. And with me, as always, is the Pouncing Puma himself, Master of the Nerdiverse, Wash. What's good, bruh?
What up, Nerdiverse? Glad to be here in 2026, about 100 years in the future compared to where this film is taking place. So I am stoked. I am stoked to be here tonight, talking about the highly re- reveted.
Could be a lot of
uh,
that this episode. A lot of that.
revolutionized. I don't know what the word is, but I am here for the hype of discussing MOTN Sinners tonight. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Critically acclaimed.
There you go. There's
13
one.
time Oscar nominee, 16 time,
13, 16
16
times.
time Oscar nominee. Sinners, man. Yeah, I'm like holding my anticipation of talking about this because I have thoughts, and you're just gonna kind of see my thoughts through our discussion of this, of where my brain is at when it comes to watching this film, this cinema, directed by Ryan Coogler. It came out 2025 and has not stopped setting the world on fire since it's been out. And now we were kind of spurred to watch this because after like getting the most Oscar nominations of all time, and honestly and transparently avoiding this film like the plague, um, our backs were against the wall, Nerdiverse. It's horror. It's black. It's supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread. We kind of were.
It's
I,
hip.
I,
It's pop culture. You know what
it's
I mean? It's
it's pop
it's
culture.
history. It's all those things tied into one bow, and I was avoiding it like COVID.
We're culturally obligated to watch this movie in multiple cultures, dog. Multicultural. There's multicultural
Ah, I like that.
obligation, dog. If you like horror, watch this movie. If you're about turn of the Jim Crow era, watch this movie.
Well, as you said, turn of the century, man. You know what I mean? It was a long time ago. So, yeah, Jim Crow.
Good old Jim Crow era, dog. So let's get right into it. Initial thoughts. We kind of alluded to our feelings about this, but Wash, what were your initial thoughts walking into this movie?
All right, we're just gonna do this then. We're gonna rip off the band-aid and get into it. All right.
Right off.
All right. So when we announced this, I want to say roughly about 14 days ago, give or take,
Yep.
I said that it would be day like 10 and I would still be needing to watch this. And full disclosure, we got to this last Sunday when I normally watch my MOTN required viewing for whatever week it may be on. And I was like, "Are we gonna watch Sinners today?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna watch Star Wars because you can't make me." But I did have PTO on Monday because it's the day after the Super Bowl. So I woke up bright and early on Monday morning and I said, "You know what? If I'm gonna watch Sinners, let me do it on some good old fashioned PTO." And that is what I did. I was not looking forward to watching it. I tried. Why? And I guess I have to explain why was I not. And it's just one of those things. And I was thinking about our conversations. It's not the first time. It's not the first film that we've both avoided due to the hype just being overwhelmingly loud. Super Mario Brothers, a really super prime example that I can bring up. We nerdiverse here, both game, you know what I mean? There's no good reason for us to watch it, but even going in, I still did not want to watch it. My initial thoughts of this is one more point.
Yeah,
One more point. Sorry. One more point.
got it.
Um, was okay. It was a tad bit spoiled for me. I say going
Well,
in because
yeah, I mean,
it was about vampires, right? So
mhm.
like, okay, that to that end, it was spoiled for me. But I am not going to say that it was the vampire musical I was looking for. I've been thinking about maybe watching a zombie puppet show movie and doing it that way and seeing what happens. But it's a unique outing. It's a unique outing, and I will rattle on just a little bit more as of initial thoughts keep turning
They
because I just
keep coming in.
in 36 hours, so they're still coming in. But um, I don't necessarily understand the 16 time nominations for it. I can guess why, but I'm not going to go into any of that during this podcast. So,
Why
on
not?
that note,
This is the place. We're never going to talk about this again, dog.
yeah, no, it's more of a industry type of. I'll keep my voices to myself in this matter.
All
But
right.
yeah, 16 times. I don't necessarily understand it.
Definitely. Just to kind of concur with what you were saying in regards to the epithets of why we're reviewing this now, why sinners now, right? And it's just in my DNA that I can't bandwagon. I just can't bandwagon. I don't have it in me. When something is too popular, I it almost is repulsive to me. Like Wicked. You gotta watch Wicked. Like, no, I don't. Leave me alone. You can't make me. Hamilton is great. Yes, Hamilton is great. But when Hamilton was popping, I wanted nothing to do with it. Just too popular. It's too popular. When things are too popular, it kind of worries me. Like, I don't want to be a part of the sheeple watching this obviously too good of a movie, too good of a experience. So when everyone and their mom was telling me Sinners is the best thing since sliced bread, and that was the buzz, that was the word of mouth, I almost instinctually rejected it. I was like, I don't want to ever, not right now. I can't do it right now. You know what I mean? I know I will eventually watch it, but I just don't want anything to do with it. And that kind of, it's one of those things where every single time you turn on your streaming app, your device, it's right there. Sinners. If it's on there, they want you to watch it. It's the first thing up because it's so popular. I'm like, no, I'm going to keep looking down and I don't care. So when it hit the docket, in a MOTN live Friday nights at 6 p.m. Plug, and I was just like, "Wash, we kind of have to watch this at this, if not now, when?" Right? 16-time, you know, Oscar nominated, magnum opus apparently, and just like we just got to do it. It's one of those
Yeah.
Godzilla minus one. God, you know what I'm saying? Like we're missing out apparently. And coming into this, like Wash said, spoiler, spoiled. You know, we're a little late to the bus here. But like Wash said, the context of how things come about in this movie was not spoiled to me. Like I knew all the beats. I didn't quite know how it ended. I didn't look that far into it. So there were certain things I knew was going to happen, certain things I didn't know was going to happen, certain approaches I wasn't ready for. But I could kind of see 16 time, 16 time, 16 time, but it's not just something like I'm a changed man. You know what I mean? I need to get that part that smoke and stack have in my hair. I'm walking around dressed like I'm not walking around dressed like Red from Malcolm X. It's just no, it didn't change my life. But I can understand the hype because you know, we'll go into it with this review. This is a beautifully shot movie. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna say give my two pieces about that. But with those initial thoughts, I first want to take a step backwards and
Hmm.
talk about horror and noir, um, like the history of African Americans in horror and African American themed horror movies. You know what I mean? going back to the very first African American lead in a movie that we reviewed, you know, um, Night of the Living Dead, or the Romero films,
Yeah.
to exploitation of the silliest order of Blackula, to Cabrini Green and Candyman. There's a huge history of
I,
African Americans.
you put up Blackula, and because we were just talking about Blackula because I brought up Eddie Murphy's movie Brooklyn in New York, and you mean
Yeah, Vampire Brooklyn.
Blackula? I mean, I was like, no, Vampire in Brooklyn, because that's where my mind went. But anyway, it is a long and rich history for sure. Go on. My apologies.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna get your thoughts on the history of African American, I would say, not just starring, but driven horror. Like, I think of silly movies like Boys, and I think of like Tales from the Hood, all the way to the more recent Get Out and Us, where it definitely has that culture, you know, enriched horror that we just don't get that often in minority films. And there's been a couple of instances where it's been that culture has been African American, history and culture.
I hadn't considered this as a topic as I was watching the film Sinners, which I guess probably I should have. I don't want to nothing's color, but I wasn't really looking at it from that lens of this being an African American horror film and how does it rate up against those. I will go as far to say that I did take 10 random vampire films and in my mind kind of put it in a place
Yeah,
where I could look at and grade Sinners objectively and not with that eye of, man, you know what? Eh. So that being said, yeah, man, it's a long history, and in fact, Queen of the Damned, freaking absolutely
awesome.
fantastic movie
Yeah,
with Aaliyah. Like, what,
Kasha.
100%. Aaliyah, right? I
Yeah,
did. Okay, I was like, I
yeah.
thought you said Tasha.
No,
I
the
was
name of the
like, who?
vampire was
Oh,
Akasha. That's what my brain went.
there you go. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And overall, I I don't know if I'm gonna put Sinners in the pantheon of black horror films like that, when it's all said and done. In fact, I can probably say I won't, but I will say that there's an appreciation for what Ryan Coogler was doing because he was pulling from a couple of different, and he was a director and producer on this, but it really gave me vamp
Yeah,
feels from the 1980s and
yeah.
that campy type of timepiece in a vampire film per se, if that makes any sense. So I wasn't quite ready with my African American history or horror history today, but yeah, there's a depth of knowledge there. But Mike, I'm sure you can expand on those thoughts.
No, nothing crazy. It's just I was just thinking about, the balance, how hard it is to balance when you're going for that culture versus horror, right? How much is your film going to be steeped in culture versus how much is going to be steeped in actual scary story or horror story. And thinking about Tales from the Hood, where there's a haunted plantation of evil dolls, versus this film where it opens on African Americans picking cotton, you know, right after during Jim Crow, um, and that's our setting. So it's like this movie is steeped in culture, but at the same time wants to tell you a spooky story about music and in the supernatural apparently.
And it takes place at an interesting time period that isn't often explored in film in general, being the early 1930s, that
Yeah.
at post-depression, pre-50s type of era where there was a lot of things going on. And in fact, there's some musicians that I happen to used to know, like from that era. So it's impressive that they decided to go here with it. I just don't know when you talk about how much how much do you balance between culture and horror? Like, does it matter?
I think it does if that's what you're trying to if
If
that's the
that's
point
what
you're
you're
trying to make.
trying to, if you, but I guess in a horror film, is that what I'm going to see a horror film about? I maybe when you look at that film about the Klan, that who did it? Was it Tarantino? Who did the Klan movie? Uh, you
You're
know,
thinking about Django Unchained.
uh, no, the other
No,
one.
the other
The other
one.
one, but close. Skinny black dude. I can't remember his name right now. Anyway,
Ah, there's so
can't
many,
remember.
bro. There's
At
so
any
many.
rate,
Yeah,
are we in culture for the sake of culture? As we talk about all the time, what are we doing? What serves the story? And I guess that's where I will leave that. My intro for Sinners is, I like the time period. I think it's beautifully shot. I
yeah,
think that culturally we got kind of tied up a bit without any explanations as to, is it necessary, but we'll get there, I'm assuming.
yeah. Absolutely, something we definitely want to talk about, and just kind of and like honestly, as I've seen Sinners in the pantheon of African American horror, I just think it needs time because I need to sit on it more because, like you, I literally watched this last night. I'm dragging my feet all the way up into the 0 hour to watch this damn movie for reasons unbeknownst to me, but we got it done, and I've just it made me think about, man, black, black horror noir. You know what I mean? There's a great documentary about it too that's on Shutter. That's just about
Mm,
horror from the African American point of view, which is really
mm.
interesting. You guys should check it out. So I wanted to talk about. I wanted to take a second before we go into spoilers. The idea of these dual characters, smoke plus stack equals trouble, um, and kind of like their representation and the overarching story, and kind of how the entire film's metaphor is kind of torn between these two wolves, so to speak. You know what I mean? How did you feel about Michael B. Jordan's role as these twins that kind of are the same but different, and how they approach this situation?
Being an actor, like, he did a great job, and one of the highlights of the movie for me is looking at the actual acting that was done. Not all the time, not even necessarily most of the time, but there was some very, very good acting going on, and Michael B. Jordan was leading all of this hard work. By, I mean, honestly, I, towards the end of the movie, I was like, is he literally playing both parts? Because my eyes are necessarily bad. You know what I mean? It's dark. I'm like, I think they're the same. You know what I mean? And he did such a good job. It actually reminded me of Eddie Murphy, because
Yeah,
Eddie Murphy is another one of those characters who can just play multiple characters on the same screen, and you get pulled into each one of his characters. So, Smoke and Stack, fantastic. I kind of wished we would have explored them a tad bit more, just as far as their history goes. But it was there. It was in the writing. It was in the script. They kind of wrote in their backstory. But at
yeah,
the same time, and I think when we talk about culture for the sake of culture, one of the things I want to say is, if it's the 1930s and it's post depression era, right? And you're in Chicago, right?
yeah,
That was born in Chicago. I'm not sure, even if you rob a bunch of gangsters, right? I'm not sure that the best idea that we have is, let's go down to the fields in Mississippi and open up a club. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we doing this in Chicago where there's a tad bit more money? So for me, that one of those things, it was just hard for me to be like, I I I get why you're doing it, I guess, but I'm not sure that it served the story, and I'm going to continue saying that. Probably it'll probably become my theme of the night,
yeah.
but I'm not sure it served the story necessarily. But I thought Michael B. Jordan much better than what I had gone in thinking.
It's interesting because, like you mentioned, Smoke and Stack kind of uh, serving the plot without a lot of exposition. You know what I mean? We don't know a lot about them, but the kind of bare bones breakdown. But one thing cool thing about this movie is that there's a lot of wordless, scriptless storytelling. Like even now, I think that's Stack wearing the burgundy and Smoke wearing the blue.
Mhm.
Apparently, they were working for both the Italians in Irish Mob in Chicago during the 30s, and they played both sides against each other and robbed both at the same time, and fleed to the South because Smokes, I guess X said they're going to put two and two together eventually,
Mhm.
and you guys are going to have to pay the toll. And you could see what sides they were working by how they dress. You know, Stack is dressed like an Italian, Al Capone gangster, and Smoke is dressed like Peaky Blinders. You know what I mean? He has the bowler hat. So you got to get the story without getting the story,
Mhm.
and I think Ryan Coogler is really good at that, at like kind of explaining without having to explain, and kind of breaking down wordless culture, that kind of spoke to me, and the reason why I just was like, okay, he's talking about like seeing things from honestly from an African American view, just based upon like not just the opening, but how they operate and what they're trying to do, and that's a whole slide I wanted to get into, was like the idea of freedom, right? Why are they doing this? What's the quickest way to make money? You know what I mean?
I
With
mean,
with our ill-gotten gains, very interesting storytelling between the two.
uh, y- yes, and they were also soldiers, so
That part too. They fought in World War I,
yeah,
you
you
know?
have that too. So again, like they told the story, they told their backstory without necessarily getting into it, but at the exact same time, we're supposed to care.
Yeah,
You know, as the audience, we're supposed to care about these characters and what's happening to them. And towards the latter maybe end of the film, I was starting to care, but the early ons, it was dragging so long that their story not having a flashback scene, perhaps, which would have been great. You know what I mean? Just to give some substance and some depth to what it
yeah,
is, the badasses that I'm looking at on screen. By the way, Michael B. Jordan's arms, bro. Like,
yeah. Guy's
bro,
yoked, guy's
dude,
ripped.
like
Yeah, just Jesus. That's
fucking
all that
A.
Creed work, man. He never
Like,
let it go. All that Creed work.
bro, your arms are bigger than the rest of your body at this stage.
Man,
They like move
jeez.
forward.
He got I got my
God,
12-inch pythons, you know what I'm
dude,
saying?
like shit.
Man, I could talk about these characters for a while, but yeah, definitely wanted to just dive into just the idea of them, kind of being, they literally look like Sub-Zero and Scorpion to me. They're just two different sides of a coin, you know, and them in the movie. And before we move on, I did want to touch on what you're saying, kind of like the beginning of the movie dragging a little bit. Um, and I think that was because they were really trying to get you to care about all the players of this film, and it kind of was dragging a little bit too long. And it right when I was about to lose me, it kind of picked up. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, now we're in the horror movie. Good times. You just saved me.
Setup took a minute. I will say they were cool characters, like Smoke
Yeah,
Stack, like they were cool characters. So I don't want to take anything away from the characters themselves, but as far as the storytelling goes, like that's where I'm more my point. The overall end all product of what we got. But I like their names, Smoke and Stack. Where's
yeah,
Smoke? It's like
yeah. I, I'm little Seymour, and I'm big Percy. You know what I'm saying? Shout outs. So before we get into the meat of things, we're going to get into spoilers with this film. So before we get into spoilers and just break down the plot, I know we've both been talking about just our general consensus of how we feel about this movie. Is there any spoiler free thoughts you would want to provide before we go into spoilers?
um No, because I think we're gonna pretty much spoil everything. I will say, being a fan of the occult and like esoteric studies, I did kind of like what they were doing in that aspect. Something else I kind of wished we would have went into with a tad bit more explanation. But nah, she's from Louisiana. That's the
Enough said.
explanation we got. You know what
Enough
I
said,
mean? And
dude.
it's like
Yeah.
that's the sentence. And that's cool. But again, I did like that end of it, and I do think that like the setting, the set pieces were kind of cool, man. Like this church, this church, this could be a church you drive by 100 times that's been shuttered, and this thing
Yeah.
actually has like a cool look to it. So they really did pull off the aesthetic that they were going for.
Yeah, if Ryan Coogler's gonna have anything, it's great set design and great film composition. It's
Yeah,
gonna look clean. It's gonna look sharp, almost like a Wes Anderson movie. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Just like angularly perfect. Yeah, and for me, spoiler before we go into spoilers, yeah, just I have an appreciation for this film, and what it wants to do versus what it did. You know what I mean? I think when we talk about the plot, I really want to go over intentions versus execution and what this wants to be because I don't because one thing I think this story lacks is a singular identity. It wants to be so many things, but it doesn't give it doesn't have intention, or the intentions it have kind of clash with what it's doing. You know what I mean? And I really want to kind of go into that more in spoilers. So let's just talk about just the general plot of the film, which is we are told that throughout history, there are certain people who are kind of like the light bringers. They're special people that can communicate through the power of song, and that transcends time, space, in all of reality. Right? They're just like through the power of song, you can channel the past, present, and future, um, and bring people together, and meld cultures together. But the problem with that is that it also draws the darkness of the other side of that magic and mysticism, and that's part of the problem when it comes to our main character, who is the preacher's son, who is kind of like our siren, so to speak. He is a titular preacher's son. He has the gift of the blues, and along with his cousins, which I don't think they're cousins. I think that was just them. We're all cousins. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the South. Um,
What's
Smoke
up,
and
cuz?
Stack. Hey, cuz, you're my cousin, bro.
Yeah, cuz.
Hey, what's up, cuz? Uh, they devised this idea where they're going to create the ultimate juke joint and save enough money to buy their own plantation for free slaves. This is post Emancipation Proclamation. But they're also under the heel of Jim Crow. We mentioned it before, and they lure not only the spirits of the locals and have a kick-ass party. I always like a good party in movies, but they also lure the dark side, which is our titular vampires and our main vampire Rimerick, who wants to capture the spirit of the blues in a weird metaphorical way. I know you've kind of given your piece about the plot, Wash, but please elaborate. When it comes to the beats of this film, do you feel like it was a coherent story? Were you able to follow through, or do you feel like it was a little bit jumbled?
No, there's a couple of thoughts, and I'm going to piggyback off your second point that you made. You said that they opened up a juke joint to open up a plantation to free slaves. The
For
second
free
part
slaves,
of
more.
that, for
Yeah,
free slave, for
yeah,
the second part of that, I did not know.
yeah. It's a throwaway line. Yeah, their whole
I did not know. Like
yeah.
they were doing a juke joint. That's where it stopped for me.
Ah,
So when we talk about, you know, a tad bit more, a tad
yeah.
bit more context would have been helpful. I did not even catch that latter half, which will make me piggyback off the first thing you said. And I think that ultimately it was trying to do a whole lot. There were a lot of ideas that, and as I was thinking about this today, I'd like to see, look, For all you folks out there, you little ones, you're like sinners. They used to make these things called DVDs, and they used to have like 2, 3 hour like director like
Commentary.
cuts, commentary, with clips, maybe a thing of the film with all the reels in there. You don't know. Now we do that on Fortnite only, 13 minutes at a crack, whatever. Anyway, that being said, this would I would love to see a cutting room floor of this film because I feel
Yeah.
as though a lot got edited out because there's just holes kind of flying through this plot. And for me, like one of the first plots that we talk about, this great blues singer, this thing taking steep, and I definitely don't want to take away, folks, if you want to listen to the blues, to watch this. This is a great film to listen to the blues on. There is some fantastic music happening in this film. But to your point, well, he's a blues player, and like dark things and good things can transcend time. That's it. All you need to know, folks. Move on. With what it was trying to ultimately do, intention, which
Yeah.
is 16-time Oscar winner, I'm having a hard time just swallowing that.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, you gave me a lot to think about there in regards to the holes of the plot, which is kind of like this movie trying to have its cake and eat it too, right? Where you're building this lore of the fire bringer, the once in a generation talent that can unify us in song and that will bring us together in spirit, but you also want it to be a horror movie that, let's be honest, horror movies, the one thing they can do is leave out details because that just makes it scarier, doesn't it? We don't know what the alien is. We don't know it's called a xenomorph. You know what I mean? We don't know why the zombies are invading, right? These are the holes you could leave in a horror movie and still get that suspense. But the problem with this film is that it wants to be culturally relevant. It wants to be musically stimulating. It wants to be scary, but because it's trying to do all things, it accomplishes nothing to me. Um, yes, it is based in horror and supernatural events, but it's not scary. And I'll say all horror movies don't have to be scary. There are
Mm-mm.
tons of horror movies that are horror movies that the last thing it wants to do is scary. It wants you to have a good time. And this movie does accomplish that. I had a very good time watching this film, but I was having a hard time nailing it to a genre. But maybe it doesn't need that because I think about what was the last horror movie that was this nominated that is also just as kind of wishy washy about its formula. Silence of the Lambs,
I was like Sixth Sense, maybe.
not this nominated.
No, okay, all right. Silence of the Lambs. All right, got you.
Yeah, and I think about Silence of the Lambs. It's like it doesn't want to be a horror movie, but it is a horror movie. It's kind of a thriller. It's a
Hmm.
suspense. It wants to be scary, but it also wants to be smart. And you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't. This is how horror gets into the Oscars, right? It can't just be boo haunted house, right? There has to be symbolism and metaphors and themes behind themes. And I just think it bites off more than it can chew in the time it has. There are holes in this plot. Um, but there are holes that don't necessarily break the Jenga tower, but you could see through it. You know what I mean? Like, and
And,
yeah.
and not breaking the Jenga tower is what's important because it came close. And I guess what my best thought about this was, great. I knew it was a vampire movie going in. After I got done watching, I was like, had I not known it was a vampire movie, would that have mattered? And I
Mm,
went, no. You want to know why? Because the second we get the vampire, there's really no context to what has happened, why the vampire has appeared, what is going on with it. We don't need it. It's a horror movie. Great. right? But then you
Mhm.
throw in these great Navajo vampire hunters, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
where's the vampire? Ah, you did good luck tonight. Ah, something spooky's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen.
Spooky's gonna
Oh,
happen.
we gotta leave. Okay, we leave. Great. And then it essentially cuts away for like scenes back to Smoke and Stack for 10, 15 minutes, give or take, right? And
Mhm,
so there's constant build up, build up, build up, hit, but the hit is just a little bit less than what it should be. Like build up, build up, build up. Oh, we ripped out your throat. That's over. We're done. Build up, build up, build up. So for me, like when I think about that scene with the Native Americans and the vampire hunters, and I had to think about how that scene all happened with the fact that him playing the music. Okay, let's assume a vampire literally popped out of nowhere from some time period, was getting burned because he's in the sun, heard that. Did the Navajo hunters come in after him? Because if so, how do they know where to go?
it's the thing here's the thing, uh, I talked about it earlier, kind of like waiting I'm sorry, finish your
And,
thought.
and again, I'm not bagging on the movie, but 16-time Oscar winner, we're getting to it late. So yeah, I am going to bring up some of these things that I see as like, you know, what are we doing with this? Because had you treated it a tad bit different, the impact of a vampire movie, had I not known, would have been more impactful, I would imagine. Go on.
Now,
Sorry.
no, no worries, no. I understand, like, the scrutiny because of the accolade, right? Like, if this wasn't the 16 time, maybe it would be a little bit less scrutinous of its approach, but it's almost like when I've been talking about this movie with Mike Prime, and he saw it before me, and he wasn't really a big fan of it. He said solely because it reminded him of another movie that is near and dear to his heart, near and dear to my heart, and it just kind of threw him. Once he kind of put that correlation in his brain, he mentally checked out of this movie. And that because it reminded him of From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez, where half the movie is a heist movie. It's Quentin Tarantino, it's George Clooney. They're trying to escape. They're bandits, and then it just becomes a horror movie. But there's a clean line of bank robber horror. It just stops, right? So it's almost like I've eaten the vanilla out of this Neapolitan ice cream. Now it's just chocolate. There is no mix of the two. Buckle up, right? Whereas in this film, wants to have its cake and eat it too. So I'm watching the film. It's like, so when does the horror happen? Because we're still, you know, we got to make our juke joint and we got to pull our money together and we got to watch out for the clan and all this, like, turn of the century, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to make it spiritual stuff. And like, when does the horror happen? And then they airdrop the vampire into the story. You know what I mean? He literally drops out of the sky and okay, this is our villain. Our vaudevillain, funny enough, because he likes to sing. Um, and I think that way, him being chased by the Native American, I want to say what else would they be but vampire hunters?
They're
Are
vampire
spi-
hunters.
yeah,
There's five of them. They were after. They're
they were ready to
vampire
go.
hunters, bro.
They were ready.
They looked at her and went, "If you invited him in, you're screwed. Good
You're
luck.
screwed.
I'm
You
out.
sure
It's
you want it?
dark."
And then he saw the clan robes. Like, you know what? Y'all got it. Couldn't happen to better people. You know what I
Dude,
mean? And they broke out. But I think if they say, this is in Louisiana, right? I think this
Mississippi.
was at Mississippi. Now, if they showed a tugboat on the Mississippi River in the vampire appears from another country, appears from Ireland, and he's drawn to the sound of this guy, like, okay, he's arriving to deal with this situation, that makes more sense, right?
Makes a little more sense.
But him being kind of airdropped into the perfect place at the perfect time to find this once in a lifetime kind of like beacon of of togetherness, kind of was like, all right, we have to add this horror element. We're just gonna do it. Band-aid
Which,
off.
like, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but like with such a cool idea, and I don't know where the end is on this slide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're how we're going to talk about the last shot with him and with the guitar. But I guess my point is, if you're going to tell this story and then end with a shot, it's kind of like, well, you should have given some. Like, does he have more guitar vampire adventures? Does he play the blues when he's sad and goes to Never Never Land? Does he get to Santa Clara, California? He see the Lost Boys?
Is he a
What
lost boy?
what ends up happening here? So, I don't, again, and the villain, you know what? He reminded me more of Blade, but I thought he did a fantastic job. But he reminded me of the Blade villain.
What
I can't
Deacon
remember his
Frost?
name.
Deacon
Yeah,
Frost?
Deacon Frost. He reminded
Yeah.
a whole lot of Deacon Frost, but I it was fine. It was a vampire musical. You know what I mean? It's fine. I'm not bagging on you. I just don't know if it all made sense. Does it have to? I don't know. That's what we're discussing here. Leave
Fun
leave a
fact.
comment.
Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Um, Fun fact: this movie was from the one of the shelled scripts of the Marvel of the MCU Blade movie.
That's right.
This is the bones of of a Blade movie, right? So, seeing it in that light answers a lot of questions.
Makes me really glad we did
We
not
didn't
get
get that
this
damn
as a
Blade movie.
Marvel movie, man.
Oh,
Holy
geez, that would have
crap.
been tight.
Oh man.
But
Oh man.
mind you,
Man. I
I ended up liking this movie, but for Blade, no.
well,
But
again, are you looking for a vampire musical? Like, it's cool, but when you talked about In and Out, and it never really picked, and that was another thing that upset me. It never flipped from to horror. It would be like,
yeah,
we're horror. Nope, we're going back to musical now. Yeah, we're jamming. We're
yeah.
jazzy. Like,
And uh, you know what this remind? I wouldn't necessarily label this a musical. It's a movie with music in it.
no.
You know what it reminds me of? Another, you know, black, black pro black movie, which is one of the classics, House Party with Kid and Play, right? You think about House Party, they're gonna get their ass whipped because he snuck out the house. He goes to a house party. What happens at a house party? They dance and there's music
Yeah.
and there's rapping and there's all types of cool stuff. I wouldn't necessarily label House Party a musical. It's a movie with music in it.
We had full scale like dancing, like this thriller
Yes,
scene that we got going here. So yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna put it in the musical category because we
fair
had
enough.
choreography. You know what I
There's
mean? And
choreography
singing. So it's like,
from
what do
the
you want me to
actors.
do? Like, what's the Indian films called? The
Bollywood, Bolly films.
Yeah, we could call it a Bollywood vampire film if you like. I don't care
Yeah,
what we're calling it. I'm just saying it doesn't quite know what it's doing, in my opinion. So, like
yeah,
I said, I'm
yeah.
here for the zombie puppet show. It's fine.
No, it's because it keeps flipping, and it doesn't let you settle in any one. si- It's like we're okay. This scene we're going to be Nancy, and we're going to have the club scene. Beautiful, like you said, beautiful music, beautiful choreography. Then we're going to have a scary scene, but we're going to immediately diffuse that with another sing-songy
Or a
moment,
comedy scene.
or a
Or
comedy
like
scene,
with like the door thing that was happening in the
or a
middle
sexual
of all
scene.
you
This one was very sexual without being derogatory. So it keeps bouncing between these themes that you can't really get comfortable in it. And it's like gumbo, but there's no roux. It's a gumbo without a roux. It's just stuff. It's just stuff in a bag at this point. There's no cohesive agent to this movie that makes it feel smooth. It's not a smooth feeling experience to me.
Mhm.
It's all good. Like the dancing is good. I love the scene where the preacher's son finally gets loose and he's singing his song and it goes into he starts to use his powers and you see the dancing. Well, but let's talk more about that actually. Um in this next slide, which is music is the motivation. You know what I mean? Hustler music. And I picked this picture because this is the classic. You see it in every black house. It's this perfect picture of people dancing at the Sugar Shack. I've seen it 1,000 times throughout my life. And this picture just reminds me of the film. This is
Yeah.
Sinners. You know what I'm saying? And just how much music was so important to this movie. And I know Wash is not the biggest fan of music. So I was watching this like, oh man, I bet Wash hates this stuff, man. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not just quick. There's like a whole song that's sung on both the good guys and the bad guys side. And the power of music, the power of togetherness, you know what I mean? The freedom of music, you know. What are your
I just
thoughts?
want to defend myself and say I don't hate music. I just don't listen to music anymore. I used to
Yeah.
listen to music just as much as everyone else. It's now it hurts the ears. I'm an old
I feel
man.
you.
I prefer quiet. I don't know what to tell you. Libraries are friendly places, people. That said, the music is fantastic. In fact, I almost called a couple of people that I know are blues people and been like, "Hey, have you seen this movie?" And I just figured that they had. So I was like, I'm not going to make the ass out of myself being on a podcast going, "Hey, have you seen Sinners? It has good blues music in it." I wasn't going to do that to
Nah,
myself, but
don't set yourself up.
I was disappointed with the amount of showtime they gave the preacher's son. I wish I remembered his name. Actually, the preacher's son's what he just kept calling
Well,
himself.
he
So
kept calling
anyway,
himself, so that's what I'm calling him.
um,
You know?
by the time again that long setup by the time we get to it he gets one song. That one song turns the world inside out and it's like,
Yeah,
okay, here we are, but you were supposed to be the man, you know what I mean? We didn't get enough of you, but it's not a musical, it's a horror film, you know what I
that's what I'm
mean? So
saying.
it,
If they just that's what if it was just dedicated to him and
yeah,
his rise to blues stardom, that would have been a great film,
yeah,
right? If it was just a horror about how music, draws in supernatural threats, that would have been a good horror movie. But it had
yeah.
to be both, didn't it? And they just kept fighting with each other. You know, even with Rimerick, the vampire. I want to talk about him in this scene because he almost weaponizes music. He music is a gateway for him as well. He has his, vampires act a bit weird in this movie. Vampire rules change depending on the director.
Mhm.
In this one, he is the head vampire. Sometimes, there aren't head vampires, but he is the head vampire. And once he turns you, you are his thrall. It's kind of like a little baby vampire. But you're also psychically linked to him. So his musical background now becomes your musical background. Kind of like when he turned those clan members at the beginning of the film. And now they can sing like the Dickens and they can play guitar and they didn't seem like the sing-songy people
No.
at that in that first scene. They just seemed like they were just cantankerous racist, but he turned them into, these, a three-person court, you know, um,
Ireland, like the what's the damn music? I'm having a rough time tonight thinking of things. Um, Irish music. Can't
you
remember the
know,
name of it.
the beautiful music, you know what I mean? And they had the entire scene where they're literally dancing out in the front of the juke joint, and he's doing his best river dance, and it looks sick, and you're vibing with it. We're all vibing with it, but it's like, but I'm supposed to be scared. These are the vampires, and it just keeps changing. And like you said, I'm going to talk more about the preacher's son. And like you said, he has lack of representation. I liked his representation in this film. I liked that he was torn between his love for music and his father's, "You're the son of a preacher, man." Like, put down that guitar and give your life to the Lord. But he wants to, "Hey, dad, I've been picking cotton all week. I only have tonight to let my hair down. I'm going to do it. Screw you. I'm going to grab this sick ass guitar and we're going to go and have a good time with my badass cousins. We're going to do I want to do ratchet things with my ratchet
Yeah, yep,
cousins,
yep.
you know? And his dad said, you dance with the devil enough, he's going to follow you home. And that's exactly what the hell happened to our boy. He's supposed to be this musical savant. And I did want to mention his voice was didn't I want to see interviews with that young man because his voice sounded AR. It sounded augmented.
I didn't think
I
so.
don't know. His voice
I
sounded off to me, like it wasn't his voice.
yeah, I
But that
didn't
could have
think
just
so.
been me because he had this super deep, like rustic, almost like ethereal voice, and when he sang, it just became like butter. You know what I mean? But it didn't fit him. It didn't fit his personality. A voice like that kind of molds you a little bit. You know what I mean? And he just was this OG golly kind of I'm young, but I'm not that young kind of dude. And you kind of see him, okay, he wants to date a married woman, he shows out, he gets the girl, to his chagrin, and he has his big moment. You know what I mean? Almost reminds me of the Black Room episode of Welcome to Derry, where the
Mm,
kids, he's
hmm
playing drums and he has this big moment until all hell breaks loose. You know what I mean? And quick question: Did you see the second ending?
The second ending of Sinners?
Yeah.
No,
Did you wait?
I didn't. No, I did
I-
not.
Oh, there's a second ending where
Oh,
it fast forwards to 1993.
oh yes, you will have to inform me. Yes,
Okay, so this may clear up a couple of things for you. So if you mentioned like at the end of our guy's story, he's holding
yes.
the guitar, broken, defeated, victorious rather,
No, I
scratched
meant the
up.
old guy in the
Yeah,
photo. That's the one. That's where I ended it because it went back into music, and I'm like, I'm done with music at this stage. Like the last shot when he's playing in the club.
yeah, with in the future, right?
Yeah, in the future. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
when he's
and
playing in
then
the
it goes
club.
back to
Yeah.
his music. Okay, yeah. Okay, you saw it. Then yeah, it kind of ties his bow. Like, well, we don't know what he's been doing this whole time. He's just been
Well,
playing blues.
yeah, no, it doesn't tie the bow, and that's my point. That is what really that's kind of what sealed it for me with this movie, as far as like which directions I was going and how it ended. Because it's like, what did I just watch? Because the photo you just gave me is what. Oh, that's like a oh, this happened in 1938. This is Bo. He's still alive. You can see him down at the Chicago Friday Blues. Don't worry
Yep.
about it. He talks about his vampire stories on the side. Or has he been having vampire adventures all this time now that he knows he can play the blues? I guess that this is something that Ryan Coogler and team can figure out as we go forth in the future what they want to do with all of this, as
Yeah,
far as a cool thread to horror. Cool thread to horror. Music to get to horror. Great. But to this film, like it didn't, I'm not sure that that helped me at all. Because
yeah.
what are you telling me?
It didn't
Oh, he
serve me.
lived.
He lived,
He
and he
lived to
lived
play the blues.
a
Does it
long,
matter,
fruitful
Mike?
life. Yeah, because you got to see his choice. Either you're gonna put down the guitar and be a man of God, or you're gonna follow and keep being a sinner. Right? He chose to continue to be a sinner. Now, what does that mean? Right? If let's say this movie wins all 16 Oscars, right? It's good. It's gonna have a sequel, and there you may have or a prequel for that matter, and there you may say, "Oh, man, this guy's been been slaying vampires this whole time because every time he opens his mouth, he draws supernatural creatures. So
Yeah.
if he wants to keep singing the blues, he's going to keep having this problem. So maybe he gets really inept at killing hates and vampires or whatever happens to slither down his way.
My hope is that is what happens, because it will make this movie a lot more meaningful, in my opinion, than just a single standoff. And for you to say he ended up being a sinner, I hadn't even considered the title of the movie at all when I'm thinking about any of this that's
Yeah,
happening. As
yeah.
far as the movie goes, it's like, oh yeah, all y'all were bad. I was wondering, why is everybody cheating on everybody? Oh,
They're
I
all
get it.
sinners. They're all heathens, Doug.
I got you.
They're all heathens, man.
Like none of y'all single. Like you
No,
can't
they're none
find
of
a
them.
single girl, bro.
None of them
Like
are
come on,
redeemable,
man.
Doug. They're all
Like
cheating with
damn,
each other. They're all, what I'm
damn.
saying, freaking Smoke and Stack are kind of like anti-heroes in this. They're shooting people in the ass for trying to steal their stuff. gets wild. It gets real in the field, bro.
That's funny.
Real quick, I want to talk about the end of this movie. Almost, I call this slide the illusion of freedom. You know what I mean? And just one of the things he said at the end of the movie was, you know, for a couple of hours on that night, we were actually free. We felt free, right? Needless to say, Rimerick let the cat out the bag. Like, yeah, that guy who sold you the property is the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, and he was going to exterminate all of you this morning after you slept it off and take the house back. This is a killing floor. This is not a barn. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, they were never free to begin with. You know what I mean? They were trapped and didn't even know it. And this illusion of freedom, this illusion of kind of like independence in this time where there was no i- true freedom, there was no independence because you're still kind of under the thumb of the hierarchy. And it kind of goes back into the vampire thing, right? Oh, you're free, but I want your freedom. I covet your talent. I need your essence. And it's like the metaphors on top of metaphors in this movie that it wants to tell you. You know what I mean? So, did you get any of that from this film? Did you feel that illusion of freedom? Did you feel like, you know, these guys were screwed no matter what they did?
No, no. And you want to know why? Because of what you said. Because at the end, what to do? So the vampire Remrick is telling us what a bad guy the red dragon of the KKK. You're a vampire. You literally have killed 20 people tonight. And now you're sitting here standing going like, "Oh, but I'm not as bad as this guy." And it gave me very Peacemaker 2 vibes when they brought back the dad. It's like, didn't we deal with this whole thing already? And it's like, no, we didn't. I'm not sure it needed to be brought back up. I mean, the floor was blood coming fresh off it dairy. Like I knew the score of the game coming off of watching dairy, so it was not a big surprise to me when that turned out to be it. But I would again, why? Oh, the vampire's the high moral one? No, not really.
Rimerick is a interesting
One
foil.
more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
One more thing. If he is playing the blues for the next, 40, 50,
40,
60
50 years.
years,
Yeah,
right? So does Rimrick have another, is there another music vampire that has another clan of people trapped then that there's
we don't.
trying to get out, or does Rimrick come back, or
Well, I mean,
mm,
that's in that gap
mm,
of time. Like I
mm.
said, if this is a problem wherever he plays live, he's going to draw nefarious creatures. He's going to have to defend himself, right? So that's a whole nother story. And you know what they said with vampires, they're the worst kind because if you kill the leader, that does not necessarily mean everyone will revert back or die or just stop being vampires. You have to kill every single last one of them. And that's why, Stack and Haley Steinberg is still floating around in the 90s as independent vampires. They're no longer enthralled with Remerick, and oh, I lost my train of thought there. And oh yeah, Remerick's an interesting villain because he's almost like a false ally to the cause, right? He shows up with his people. He's nothing but respectful. Hey guys, please let us in, right? We want to jam out with you guys. It looks like it's fun in there. You guys are killing it. You with the clan? No, we believe in equality. We're down for the fight. We just want to hang out. We want to spend money with y'all, and we want to party with y'all. Check it out. We can sing too. The Irish music, the Irish music, the Irish music, the
I'm
Irish.
amazed at how much of this script you have remembered. Like
Yeah.
you're almost word for word on the script.
Uh, I enjoyed it. I can't hate and say I didn't enjoy it. And it's just like he's a false ally because he doesn't see himself as evil. No one technically died under his watch because he would bite them, they'll get all gross, and they come right back up. He's fine. He's just sleeping it off. You know what I mean? He'll be fine. Very much in the line of, did you ever see Innocent Blood? It's one of my favorite vampire movies of all time.
Is that Demi Moore?
No, it had Robert Loggia. It's about a
Mm,
female vampire who gets into it with the Italian mob in like the
yeah, I've seen
80s.
that.
Oh,
Yep,
it's
I've
such a good
seen that.
movie
Yep,
where
absolutely.
the mob boss becomes a vampire, starts turning his mob lieutenants and stuff, and they become the undead mafia. And she has to clean up the mess and go and kill them all. It reminds me of that, where it's like, oh, don't worry about Paul. He's just sleeping. He'll be fine. Give him a minute. Wakes up, he's a vampire, right? So I don't think Remerick ever saw himself as a villain. I am liberating you of freedom. I'm giving you true freedom because you're never going to be free under these boys. They're never going to let you be free.
Yeah.
Even now, they plot against you. You're not free. This is true freedom. One vampire wakes up. Yeah, man, this is awesome. Hell no, dog. You got your half your face is exploding, cornbread. What's your problem? Now this is amazing. Watch, you'll see. It's like no, it's like we covet your talent because we can make it better for you on this side of the wall, which I think is something that's been kind of like echoed through, African American talent since freaking, you know, Elvis, the Elvis days. It's like, hey, that sounds cool. We could do that too. And it's like having to protect the spirit of our culture from this seemingly advocate that just wants to kind of co-opt it and kind of make it theirs. Because even Remrick says, like, I need your talent so I can see my people. I miss my people. I want to be able to see them too. I can't see them like you can see your people. But technically, I don't think they could see their people when that whole collage was happening, where it mixed with hip hop. And you saw people crip walking and blood walking, and you saw like the different cultures in that one scene. I don't think anybody was aware that was happening. You know what I mean? It just was
No.
kind of like a visual representation. Apparently, Rimerick can. He saw that going on. He was hype. It's like, yeah,
Ah,
that's gonna be me. So the illusion of freedom, the idea that Remerick is kind of like this Trojan horse, providing freedom at the cost of your soul. You know what I mean? Interesting stuff to me.
very good. I hadn't considered Remrick as the anti-hero of this story in any way, shape, or form, but he does present himself in that way as very much not that this is anything bad, but more like, yeah, you are being liberated from your current oppression. So join me, and
Live forever.
everything will
We could
be all
party.
good.
And
Everything
we're
will be all good.
Mark,
Just let me in.
just let me in. Invite me in. I can't I can't force myself into your culture because it comes off false. You have to let me in. That's
Let
crazy.
me in.
That's a wild way to think about it. It's about that time, Wash. We're getting to final verdicts. Overall thoughts, concerns, uh overall last thoughts about this film, and rate it from 0 out of 5 limericks. What would you rate
Limericks.
Sinners? What are your thoughts?
Sinners for me is a. It is a. I. I'm not gonna say that I enjoyed it that much. I enjoyed what it was trying to do, but I think that its execution was not cohesively, as you have pointed out, cohesively pulled off. Like the entire thing could have just been a tad bit smoother for me. As a entertaining movie, I don't I think every time I started to get entertained, something would happen that would take me out of the entertainment and put me back into something else, be it the as you said, be it like then all of a sudden they're saying the Lord's Prayer all walking down the street, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, that's kind of I
jarring.
didn't see that coming, but all right,
Yeah.
that works, I guess here, but it's just a tad bit jarring. So, um, I think that it was acted fantastically. I think that it looks great. I think the execution could have been better. If you told me Sinners Part 2 was coming out, I would not go to rush it, but I would see it. And on that note, I'm going to do something that I no, I'm not. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 limericks.
3 out of 5. That's honestly for your critiques and your honest opinion. That's a pretty high score. I thought you were gonna go lower. Honestly, that's a fair. That's like a B. That's a fair score. You know what I
It's a
mean?
C.
Yeah, you
It's a
call it.
C. It's
It's a
a
C.
C. It's a
Okay,
C. Yeah, it's a C.
all right. I feel that. I feel that. Man, this movie, man. Do I regret watching it? I wouldn't say. I think regret is a strong word. I wouldn't say regret watching it. Do I understand the hype and appeal? I kind of don't. I'm right. I'm kind of in the same boat with you.
16?
16. Um, I remember when
Like
Black
Lord
Panther.
of the Rings got what? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Lord. All right.
I. This movie feels. Uh, it's hard to put because I remember the hype around Black Panther. I remember when Black Panther came out and everybody was all dressed up and it became this big hoopla. You know what I mean? It was good. You know, Ryan Coogler, right? Another Coogler film. And we went to go see it, and we were all unified. Wakanda forever, all that good stuff. Um, Wakanda forever. Yeah, throw it up real quick. So just so you know. Um, I'm gonna get so much shit for. I've been trying not to curse this whole episode, but um, this movie, I don't. It feels like I'm like getting married, and I can't sit still on my wedding day. I'm being rushed from room to room. I can't really enjoy the day because I'm too busy. Okay, you got to sit here. I got to put my suit on. Oh crap. My wife's my fiance's throwing up. I got to go make sure she's okay. She's tripping out. Oh, my dad is running late. Put on your suit. Okay, I got to take these pictures real quick. It's like it's so busy that you can't just enjoy what you're supposed to enjoy. For me, like we're either I'm either dealing with black trauma, or I am singing beautiful blues songs, or I'm being freaked out by vampires, or I'm playing with the supernatural, or I'm watching an awkward sex scene, or I'm back to horror. And it doesn't know how to breathe, this
Mhm.
movie. It doesn't know how to breathe a scene. It doesn't know how to breathe a moment. And it's so tactical. It's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so tactile that you can't get
Mm.
comfortable. You know what I mean? Um, and and that's not to take away the strength of each individual part. Like the cinematography is top notch. The acting is crazy. There's so many good actors in this movie that are just killing it. You mentioned the Michael B. Jordan playing dual roles. Him fighting himself at the end was so jarring because you start to forget that the technical skill that it took to film that scene of him fighting his vampire self at the very end. You forget you become so immersed in that moment that like, man, these two brothers are fighting. No, it's just Michael B. Jordan, you know, and green screens. You forget that part. Uh, so this film I want to say is bigger than the sum of its parts, but unfortunately for me, it's not. The sum of the individual parts are great. And I think as if those individual parts were given more focus and expanded upon, it would have made a more cohesive watching experience. You know, I'm not trying to be a contrarian and just hate to hate. This is my honest thought. Like, if you would have focused more on, if it was more 70-30 in either direction, I would have enjoyed this a lot more, right? Give me less horror, more the plot, which is we're going to build a juke joint. We're going to build something for us. We're going to be sinners, or pull back from the message and give us more horror. You know what I mean? Let that be the undercurrent of this. This story strongly needed an undercurrent, and everything was fighting and jockeying for position on the point it wanted to make, and trying to make every point it made no point is what I'm saying. So I feel you saying like if they announced Sinners the prequel, Fornicators, you know, um that, I don't know if I would rush to the theaters, but if it's on HBO Max again, I may check it out. I'll go see Fornicators. starring Michael B. Jordan again.
It's funny.
But I would give this after saying all that, I give it about a 4 out of 5. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I did not enjoy my time with it. Mind you, I just saw this last night. I'm still kind of fresh off the hills, which is actually better for me. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's not a 4.5, not a 3.5. It's smart, but it's too smart for its own good. It tries to do too much and it doesn't do anything. And that's that. And if it wasn't so skillfully made, and if it wasn't so skillfully directed, and wasn't so skillfully acted, this would be way lower. In the hands of a lesser director, this is a 3. In the hands of a less competent director, this is a 2.5 for me. But but Ryan Coogler elevates it. Michael B. Jordan elevates it. The cast elevates it. The music elevates it, and gets it right over that hump line to make about a 4.5 for me. Honestly,
4.5 or 4?
4. Sorry, 4.
4.
4, 4, 4.
Okay.
4 out of
Okay.
4 out of 5 limericks.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Not a bad average. It averages about to what, a 3.5 between the two of us.
7 divided by 10. Yeah, give or take.
Yep, we take those. We take those. With that, that brings us to the end of our review of Ryan Coogler's 2025. I don't know what to call this movie. Is it a horror? Is it a musical? Is it a history film? It's everything. It's Sinners. What coming soon, fornicators. Wash. Any final thoughts before we close this bad boy out?
Yes, something I did not mention. This is not a short film either. This thing clicks in at like 220.
2:30.
So
Yeah.
220,
Ooh.
230. So it's not like it didn't have its time. You know what I mean? Like it just it I'm not sure that the first 45 to 50 minutes were used as wisely as they could have been used. And that being message, culture, vampires, song, music, whatever, you know, they were putting together a cool party, but it kind of got lost. It kind of got lost for me.
I understand. The first 50 minutes, establishing, you don't have to establish the world because we lived it, right? Kind of. But establishing the characters, that could have been cut down. I think they should have given more time to Rimerick in his motivations, in his kind of like place in this world, because he really doesn't have a place in this story. Like I said, he's airdropped into the story. We don't know where he came from. We don't know where he's going. We don't know, you know, why he's in the right place at the right time to find uh preacher's son. Are there just a trillion preacher's sons everywhere and he could just literally point any direction and he just hit one? Or is this gift once in a generation? Maybe 5 people on earth can do this at one time. We don't know. We're not given that kind of backstory. So yeah, the beginning of the movie could have been uh the plot could have been um uh broken up a bit better to kind of, so it felt a bit less jarring when we get to the scary parts. You know what I mean? But I think that's my last thoughts on it. I mean, there's so much potential in a story like this. Setting's great, the idea is great. But it just bites off more than it can chew for me. You know what I'm saying? Cool beans. With that, we are done, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this content, please remember to like the content on YouTube, on Spotify, and anywhere you can find this podcast. Subscribe to the channel so that you're made aware when new content goes live on the channel. And lastly, comment. Are we completely off base when it comes to Sinners? 16 times, 16 times, 16 times. I think we both gave a very thoughtful and honest, thoughts on this movie. But sometimes opinions are wrong. So are our opinions wrong? Let us know. Sound off in the chat. I love to hear more thoughts on this film outside of myself or Wash's. With that being said, we are the masters of the nerdiverse. I'm of course Mike G. Once again, as always, thank you, sir. Thank you, Master of the Nerdiverse Wash, for joining me this evening. And I'll close out with MOTN out. Take care, everybody.